My Jimi Hendrix Experience by Cherokee Billy. This is my memoir of the first time that I saw Jimi Hendrix perform live in person. It changed my life forever. A friend of mine named Bob was staying in Los Angeles in the fall of 1968 when I was 17 years old. Bob asked me, "Would you drive me to a rock concert at the Swing Auditorium in San Bernardino, California? I'll pay for the gas and buy you a ticket to the concert if you'll take me." "Sure," I replied. "Who's playing?" "It's a really far-out guy named Jimi Hendrix. He's the most bitchin' dude I've ever heard. His group is called the Jimi Hendrix Experience." "I've never heard of him, but that's okay. I always like to see the latest in rock and roll. I'll need to get a map to figure out how to drive there since I never heard of this place. That's a really long drive and will probably take about 2 hours. Bob was ecstatic. "Far out. I'll score the tickets right away. Later." That week I spoke to a friend of mine named Clay and told him I'm going to be taking my friend Bob to a concert out in San Bernardino to see some guy named Jimi Hendrix. Clay exploded with, "You've got to take me with you. I just love Jimi Hendrix righteous music. I'll buy a ticket and help pay for the gas if you will let me go along." "Solid," I replied. "I always like going to a concert with a lot of people, so get your ticket and meet me at my house this Saturday. I'm sure Bob will have no problems about your jamming with us." "I'm stoked. Catch you on Saturday," Clay said. The three of us gathered at my house early that Saturday afternoon. Bob had brought his 35mm camera to record the event. We set out for our rock concert journey in my 1967 lime green Ford Mustang. Bob kept stating over and over during the ride, "Hendrix has just got to play my favorite song, Purple Haze. It's the grooviest song I've ever heard. I can't wait for you to be able to hear that song." When we arrived at the auditorium, many hippies with their long hair, beads, feathers, leather, and nonconformist attitude of peace and love were gathered outside the Swing Auditorium, which looked just like a high school gymnasium building. I couldn't believe this was where a concert was going to take place. The three of us were far from being hippies. We were middle class, not willing to live the free lifestyle, usually drug-laden, that so many flower children were involved in. It was a typical rock concert to me, except it was taking place in a very out-of-the-way location. I was used to concerts taking place in Hollywood. My main concern at that moment was remembering where the car was parked so we could find it quickly after the concert. The three of us entered the auditorium and were disheartened to see that it was open seating. There was no assigned seats, so it was a free-for-all on where you sat. I really hated this type of concert seating, because if you got up to go to the bathroom, you would lose your seat or your place in the crowd. The auditorium had space for about 1,000 people. Bob said, "I want to get as close to the stage as possible. Let's make a beeline to the front of the stage." I looked up and noticed a poster hanging next to the stage. It was a picture of a young black man with crazy hair, looking very arrogant and sexy. I only liked rock and roll music, so I was beginning to think that I was going to hear black soul music. There were folding chairs surrounding the outer perimeter of the stage. Toward the front of the stage there were no chairs. It was just an open floor for people to stand on. Bob led the two of us to the very front of the stage, pushing and shoving whoever was in his path. I was glad that there were two young men with me so that I would not be beat up or be hassled by the fans. I knew that mild hippies could go berserk without too much provocation, from my previous experience of being attacked, trampled by fans, and beaten up by police at previous concerts. It was impossible for us to talk because of the loud noise of the crowd. We staked out our positions at the front of the stage, when out came the fire marshal and made an announcement. This concert is going to be canceled due to the fire hazard of so many unruly people in this auditorium. If you don't sit down immediately, we will close down this concert. Suddenly, this black man came onto the darkened stage and yelled into the microphone, "Shut the up! I want to play." The entire auditorium went silent and everyone sat down. I wondered, who was that? I couldn't see who it was because of the darkness on the stage. I had never heard anything like this being said to an audience before. The fire marshal came back and said to the crowd, "Okay, because you're all cooperating, we will let this concert continue." The lights came on the stage. There were already musical instruments set up just waiting for the performers to bring them to life. The crowd started going crazy with excitement. The three of us were being pushed very hard into the wall of the stage. The stage was approximately 5 feet high, and I felt like a tomato being squished against the stage. I couldn't get any closer unless I was on the stage. I was slightly separated by a few feet from Bob and Clay, but they were still within eye contact. It reassured me to see their faces, as any moment I could be pushed down or trampled by the bodies pushing me into the stage. From off stage came these two white men with crazy afros, looking like tendrils reaching into the universe. One sat at the drums, the other picked up a bass guitar to play. The anxiety of the crowd increased when out came the same black man I had seen on the poster. So this is Jimi Hendrix, I thought to myself. He was wearing maroon-colored velvet pants, a white shirt with an embroidered jacket, beautifully spaced-out hair, and carrying a white guitar. He was smiling and spoke to the crowd. "Good evening, everybody. It's really cool that you all shut up so I could play. I just want to groove with you this evening. So let me just get you experienced." I recognized the voice as the one who had said, "Shut the up, I want to play," from earlier. The moment Jimmy strummed the first note of the guitar, the audience went crazy with excitement, and I realized I was not going to see a Motown soul artist. I maintained my place next to the stage, as the audience was so entranced by the music that they were no longer pushing and shoving. Jimmy started playing a song called "Fire." The sounds emanating from his guitar were like a foreign language to me, mysterious, beautiful, different, and dangerous. Jimmy contorted his face with each chord movement. It was like seeing the chords, even if you didn't know them. The music was so loud it physically penetrated my body. It was as though I had become the instrument that he was playing. I was moving to each sound he made without any control of my body.